Hello there. I'm here since someone requested that I make a video going over how I made my Optimus Prime animations on my YouTube channel. Yep, these ones. So yeah, I can't really give like an exact tutorial because I did already do everything, and yeah, I haven't really got any recordings of me doing it. But I can just kind of give a brief overview, kind of just give a general idea of what I did, why I did it, and yeah, how I achieved this product. So I was thinking I'm going to make this into a three-part series, where for the first part I'm going to talk about the vehicle mode, right? I'm going to talk about some of the modeling processes, the rigging, and the animation for the vehicle mode. For the second part, I'm going to go more into detail on the robot mode, the rigs, how I join together the robot and the car rigs, and then the transformation between them. And for the third part, I'm going to go into detail on the Optimus Prime's weapon, the Path Blaster, and what I did for the modeling and the animation and the rigging parts. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. Oh, and before we get started, I'd like to give a quick shout out to my man Tibet. Has to be one of my not most hated countries for real. Tibet, my man. Now let's get going. So first things first, we're gonna talk about modeling. Um, when I did start modeling, what I first started with was I did the vehicle mode first. This makes things a lot easier since you can just basically you can copy over the vehicle like parts that you're planning to use for the robot, and then you can just use them on straight on the robot, right? Because when you're transforming between the vehicle and the robot, generally you want the vehicle mode to be seamless. So if you made the robot first and then you want to make it into the vehicle, then say some parts might not quite fit right, or you don't know what you want for the vehicle mode, or you're not quite sure where you should put certain things so that it looks, like a actual vehicle. This is not as important for this vehicle because like, as you can see, this is a bit more of an abstract vehicle. If you want a more seamless vehicle mode, then yeah, for sure, it's not gonna work if you start with the robot first. So yeah, what I recommend is you start with the vehicle. Make sure you finish everything. For me in this case, I did get rather impatient because I um I did start doing the robot model halfway through, way before the vehicle mode was finished. So yeah, you can see all these grooves here and whatnot. All of these details are also details that are going to be going on the robot mode. And what I should have done is I should have finished everything first before I tried to pour everything over and before I started making the robot. In case, if I made some other changes here, then I'm going to have to change it back here again. So essentially, I'm just wasting time if I make the robot first, or if I try and make the robot before I'm completely satisfied with the vehicle mode. When you are done with the vehicle mode, or as you're making the materials for the robot mode, what I would recommend is you color code your pieces, right? So if you're planning to use this piece, say it's also gonna go on the robot, then what you can do is you can make like a separate material. As you can see, yeah, I haven't got any materials down yet, but you can just make a separate material, and then you can go down to materials and here viewport display. You can change the color to something a bit brighter. Let's just go back to solid mode. So now, even when you're in solid mode, even when you're just modeling and just working in the normal view, you can see there's a distinct color for this. What you can do is you can assign all of these pieces that you're planning to put on your robot to this new one, and then while in the material preview it looks exactly the same. When you're in the future mode, you can use this as kind of as like a way to color code your things. So when you're actually transforming, or when you're trying to combine the rigs together for transformation, you're only going to need one of these, right? You're only going to need one of this torso piece. So when you combine it together, then yeah, you know which parts are duplicates, so you know which parts that you can delete one of, and you can know which parts that you're still going to need, that you shouldn't delete quite yet. Later on, when I try and put in all the grooves, what I did was I would put in a plane, have a solidify modifier on it. I did try to find better ways to do this, but for the most part, this seems to be the best way, I think. So I would have a plane here, and I would have a solidify modifier on it, give it some thickness, and then if we add the boolean to this, then yeah, if we hide that, we're gonna see a nice cut going right through. You can adjust exactly how thick you want it. In terms of what I did for the tires, This is a bit more complicated. To be honest, I'm not quite sure what I did. So what I have here is, should I turn off all these modifiers here? So I just have this little tire piece, right? And then I have it mirrored, so it fills in. It goes along the entire length. I have this array modifier here. I have object offset turned on, and then I have this empty here that's exactly inside the circle. It follows the rotation perfectly, everything, because I have it set to. I placed it in the origin of the circle, and then I have this array modifier, and then I have the target for this modifier here set for the object offset to the empty. So what I can do is I can use the empty to adjust the offset of the array modifier and whatnot. So I put it at a I would rotate this along the x-axis until I get a separation that I liked, and then I would just fill it, increase the counts to fill it in, make sure everything looks nice, make sure everything looks good. I can just parent everything, like the empty, the array modifier, and the glowing bits, which I made a separate object. I would just parent everything to this body of this wheel, and then I just have this functional wheel. Yeah, so that's how I made the wheels, and then I just duplicated that a couple times. You can see I used the mirror modifier for basically everything here. Mirror modifier, mirror modifier, mirror modifier. That's because, you know, this thing is symmetrical, and anything you change, you can just change it back instantly. It's very nice. You basically cut down the amount of work you have to do to just half the vehicle. You do, of course, have to add all these details, but they're duplicated on the other side. So yeah, what I usually tend to do is I keep the mirror modifiers on for as long as I can until like I start rigging this model, so that if I want to make any last minute changes, then I can still make it, and then I can just yeah, it'll reflect onto the other side as well. For these cutting objects as well, I would have it parented to the object it's cutting into, so if I move this, the cutting block would also move. So if I move this around, if I move the object around, then the cut would stay relatively the same. Now onto the next part, for the materials. For the materials, I have this rather basic edge mask here. If I could show you. Here, edge mask here, which I use from combining the it uses geometry input here, the dot product multiplied with the bevel node, and then into that I have a noise texture map range feeding into it, so that I have some variation, right? If I turn that off, that would be like perfectly, yeah, that would be just perfect even, which is not that realistic. So I add this, it gives me a nice amount of variation. I can control it using the noise texture. So I can say I can change how fine I want the roughness to be. I can change different details about it, scale, whatnot. I can also change the map range, so I can change like how much wear and tear there is for the edges. And yeah, you can just play around with it and see what you like, see what gives the right values that you want. For things like this, you could copy straight up what I did, but it's also better if you just play around, because our models are going to be different, right? If things are different size, then they're going to react differently to the bevel modifiers, because these have some of these have like constant values, like the ambient occlusion node, for example, which I used. For knowing how to actually set up these, you could just look up on YouTube just any tutorial for a edge mask, for putting in like procedural edgeware. Yeah, there are tons of great tutorials. You can find whichever one you like. I'll be dropping a few good resources down in the description for you guys to look at. Alternatively, you could just straight up copy what I've got here, but again, mine is not that perfect either. Mine is a bit redundant in some places. It's a bit messy, honestly. There are lots of YouTube tutorials which will give you much better, which will give you decent results, and I'll be dropping the links for them. That's about it for the materials. For the animation now, this is the tricky part. So this is the rig for my model. This is, as you can see, this is far from ideal. Extremely messy. It's got bits and pieces everywhere. Not super proud of it, but I mean, it is functional. It works perfectly, and as you can see, I was able to put together the animation that I made. Yeah, for every single piece here, I've got its own bone that's controlling it. And yeah, I just use this to animate. if I go into this here, I have the NLA editor open. I did initially try to edit without the NLA editor, just on the timeline alone, with just one large timeline. But what I ended up was I wanted to make the engine shake for this, but I also had to make the body of the car, which is the same bone that I was using for the engine shake, also like move down a little bit for the sake of the transition to the boost mode and to the hover mode as well. So I had to had the engine shake running and the chassis moving down at the same time, which and while I was trying to figure out what to do for that, I ended up having to use the NLA editor so I can layer different like animations. But yeah, it's great. You can see on the NLA editor, I have just for this rig alone, I have 3 different layers running. One is for the body movement, which is the body shifting, tilting back and forth. I've got one for the engine shake, which is just the engine shaking, and I've got one for the wheels themselves vibrating. They do look a little bit off now, but that's because yeah, it's just if you just isolate the wheels animations, it's just them shaking. If you put everything together, then they're in the right spot. So yeah, it's very nice. And then I made a separate one for the wheels turning as well, as you can see here. It's just nice being able to have different layers for different things. And then I have one for the rotation of the car, and at the somewhere down here I have one for the movement of this empty that I'm using to control the vehicle. So if I move this to the left, then the camera follows it, the lighting follows it, everything follows. That's how I made the car move. That's how I made the alt mode move in the first place. But yeah, that is what I did in order to animate the vehicle moving along, just like that, for the rigging, and as in like where to place the bones and whatnot. I had this central bone here. It's kind of small, but yeah, controls the everything about the vehicle. So if I want to like move the entire thing, have it float up in the sky, have it rotate around, then yeah, I could use that for that. So the wheels are parented to the main one, and I have this one separate, and everything but the wheels are parented to it. So what I can do is I can add a nice little engine shake animation if I want. I can make the chassis bounce around, make it feel like the wheels have some suspension to them. Makes it feel a lot more lifelike. So for example here, when it hits the ground, I make the body shake a little bit. This makes so this just makes it feel a lot better. It gives it more weight. Same for this animation as well. When it goes into boost mode, I made the body actually tilt back a little bit, just to emphasize that the vehicle was like going faster, being more streamlined and whatnot. And yeah, since every armature has their own bone, I could just easily animate them separately. It's important that you have the appropriate parents set up. So if you move something, then whatever you want to move along with it will move. As you're rigging, you should try and visualize what your transformation will look like, so that you know which part would follow along with which part. And yeah, that's how I made the rig for the vehicle mode. Now, unfortunately, this was not the best idea because the fact that I did the vehicle mode and I rigged it and animated and everything before I was even remotely done with the robot mode meant that after I was done rigging the robot and I had to join the pieces together and reparent everything so that piece would follow the robot as well, a bunch of stuff was broken, and this vehicle I can't really change it to the different pose modes anymore. So I'll show you here. Initially I had 3 different pose modes which you can set here. If you go to the dope sheet here, if you can like modify any aspect, you can move it up here and you can change this. You can just basically have the vehicle in any configuration that you like, right? Now what you can do here in the animation tab is you can create a pose asset. This will save it as a pose so that you can go back to it. You can just have it set again. Yeah, I have the different modes here for the vehicle mode that I can easily transition between. So essentially how I transformed this vehicle from the one mode to another and made all the parts shift around and everything is quite simple actually. I just had a bunch of keyframes put in for all of the pieces here. So after I made the configurations for each of the modes, right, so I can just switch between them as I like, then what I would do is I would just have a keyframe at the where I want the animation starts. So say in this case I would start at 159, and I want to uh, be in neutral mode by 180. So what it'll do is it'll kind of just morph into the vehicle mode. That's what it did here. And then it's up to you as the animator to manually move the pieces around as you might like. By default, the interpolation mode is Bezier, which is not ideal. This is more smooth, but it's not robotic, and we are working with robots right here. And the animations themselves are quite slow. So you can see everything kind of morphs together, even with the linear interpolation. So basically, you need to recognize which parts you're going to shift into from where to where, right? So in this case, I have this shoulder guard here shifting into this straighter position. And what I can just first off, what I can do is I can just bring it to a lot closer so it's faster. You can see the shoulder now it's like just shifting to place at a much faster rate. And then I would just do the same for the opposite side as well, so it's more even. So now they kind of just shift together at the same time. And yeah, that's basically what the transformation is all about. You just kind of make them a lot shorter and have it occur at different points. Uh, and if some, and yeah, generally what's important is that they happen quickly within a short time frame, and that they're linear. And if you want it to be cooler, then you can add in like little animations in between, right? So, say for example for the shoulder guards, instead of just having it shift right into place, just rotating downwards at the same time, maybe I could have it rotate first and then shift into place. So it's a bit more on the tricky side, but I can just have the rotation occur first. Say like this, for example. So I have the rotation happen first, and then it moves into place. In this case, it's moving kind of diagonally, so maybe I want to fix that as well. So I would grab the X location, and I would try moving this around. So now what happens here is, yeah, we get something that kind of looks like it's rotating first, and then it moves down in place. You can play with the timing, you can play with the spacing between the different animations until you get something that you like. So you can move this a little bit further back. And yeah, I think that looks pretty good. And essentially, you just have to do the same process for during the entire transformation phase. You want to make sure that nothing happens slowly over a long period of time, because that looks pretty bad. It doesn't really look good like a transformation would. One other tip for the transformation that I learned from a different YouTuber. He makes really good transformation animations. Check him out. This guy. One nice tip is we would have this shoulder piece, right, shift into place like this. But then what we can actually do is we can add an extra frame, and then for the previous frame right before the final frame, so for the frame right before the final frame, we can actually say amplify the effect of this movement a little bit. Say it would go a little bit further down, and then it would go back into place. So what you get is you would have it go down, and then you go a little bit, then it would overshoot a little bit, and then it would shift back into place. So in the end, what you get is you kind of get this animation of a piece kind of snapping into place, which is kind of it's kind of pretty satisfying as long as you don't overdo it, or yeah. It's better if you have it for like large pieces or pieces that are like going to be moving pretty relatively fast. If you do that, then if you use it right, then it could end up looking really good. And you can see what I also did was I offset the animation. I offset the animations a little bit, so this piece on the left would fold down first, and then the one on the right would fold down. Kind of gives it a more natural look, makes them feel more alive, I guess. This kind of works in some cases, it doesn't work in some. So yeah, it's up to you to decide when would be appropriate for it. And for the wheel animations as well, I just have it offset slightly, so this front wheel would tilt into place, and then the one behind it would tilt into place, and then the one at the rear would tilt into place. So just small little offsets like these make the animation look more like everything's kind of shifting around in order to achieve this final product, and also makes it feel more alive, like it's a sentient being, you know? Yep, same tricks here. I just have all of the pieces kind of, not all of them, certain pieces shifting in from the boost mode that I use on the pose mode here into the, yeah, I mean, from the normal mode into the boost mode, and then from the boost mode back to the normal mode. And yeah, that's how I did the car. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the first part of this series for how I made my animations. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. If you have any feedback as well, go ahead, let me know. I would love to hear from you. And thank you so much for the support that I've gotten on the Optimus Prime alt mode video. It was one of the first ever videos that I've published on this platform. It was the first animation that I've published, and I'm really glad that it was received so well. So yeah, it's all thanks to you guys. And yeah, thanks for watching. Have a good one.